All right, guys, welcome back to the Hearing Club. I'm assuming since you're watching this video, you watched the first video where I introduced what we're going to be doing, what you need to get started, and now you're ready for the actual programming session. So if you haven't seen that video, make sure you watch it because I touched on a couple subjects that I want you guys all to be aware of. And I'll just quickly cover them now. Doing this DIY programming is not going to be as good as if it were being done by a professional. This is just for the folks that want to play around with their hearing aids and take a stab at it. This is for the folks that have been disappointed over and over, going to their audiologist, going to their hearing care professional, or maybe getting somebody that's not very experienced. You know the hearing aids can sound better. You're not being heard by your fitter, which happens a lot, guys. I'm going to assume you guys got the software installed. You've got your drivers installed for the NoahLink Wireless, and you have updates done for both your NoahLink Wireless and your Philips HearSuite software. And I'm assuming you have the software. So let's get ready and dive into the world of DIY programming for your own prescription hearing aids with the Philips, one of the best hearing aids out there, period. All right, folks. So I'm assuming that you guys have got your everything updated. Your Philips HearSuite has been updated. If you want to just double check and make sure you have the latest update, just click on help and check for updates. Nothing pops up. Just like that, you are good to go. Now, this is the standalone version of the Philips software. Normally, at a practice or at a hearing aid fitter's office, an audiologist, they're going to have Noah set up, which keeps a record of all the different audiograms that have been inputted, all the different programming sessions that you've done throughout the past, etc., etc. We are just using the standalone version of the Philips HearSuite software. You don't have to have Noah. That's just what we use. So first thing we're going to do is set up a new client. I already have mine here, but I'm going to set up a new one just to show you guys how to get started. So click on new client, put in your name. I'm going to put in SpongeBob SquarePants. And then we have to put a date of birth. I'm just going to do January 1st, 1991. And there you go. Now, what you're going to want to do is get your audiogram, whether you've got your audiogram from Beltone, Costco, Miracle Ear, whatever. Just make sure you have an audiogram. And the best thing to do is to use an audiogram from an actual licensed practitioner or audiologist. You don't want to use an audiogram that you get from doing an online hearing test. They're not very accurate. So make sure you have a legit audiogram. I'm just going to grab an audiogram from the internet somewhere so that I can show you guys how to transfer the data from the audiogram to this audiogram tool right here. So you want to click on audiogram, and this is going to allow you to input the audiogram that the software will be using to program your hearing aids. Okay, so I'm going to go grab one really quick. All right, so here's our audiogram. And these are your thresholds. The right ear is indicated by the red circles and the left ear is indicated by the blue X's. Red is always right, blue is always left. Now, your audiogram should have your bone conduction scores, your uncomfortable levels, or your UCLs. And whatever yours has, make sure you put in all of that. I'm just going to show you guys a basic audiogram that only has your air conduction threshold. Those are the most important data points that you want to use to program your hearing aids, but you definitely want to put in your bone scores or bone conduction scores and your UCLs. And I'll show you guys what those look like. So on this audiogram here, the left ear at 250 hertz, the threshold is 5 decibels. So left ear, which is on the right side. Whoops. Anytime you make a mistake, you can just right click on it and just hit delete value. So the left ear, we're going to start with 250 and go all the way through 8,000. So the first one is going to be 5 decibels at 250. So we're just going to go here at 250 and we're going to go 5 decibels. 500 hertz is 10. So we're going to go to 500, which is down here, and 10. 1000 is at 10 as well. So you just go to 1000 and 10. Now, if you have a 750 hertz threshold, make sure you put that in as well. We're just going to go ahead and put it right here. And then 1500, the left ear is 15. So here's 1500, and we're going to go to 15. 2,000, the left ear is at 40. There's a big drop there. So 2,000, we're going to go to 40. 3,000 for the left ear is 55. So we're going to go to 55 for 3,000, which is right here. And here's 50 and there's 55. 4,000 is 75. Remember, we're just doing the blue X's, which is the left ear. So 4,000 is 75. Boom. 6,000, they don't have one, so we'll just put another 75. And then 8,000 is 70, so we're going to put 70. Now, just to keep things easy, I'm just going to copy this over to the right ear. We're going to pretend I have a perfectly symmetrical hearing loss, which means the left is the same as the right. Okay? Now, if you have bone scores, again, you want to put those in. You would click on BC, and we're just going to pop those in really quick, okay? Bone conduction scores that's the part of the test where they put the bone oscillator, that metal band, on the back of your mastoid, and they do the bone conduction testing. And those are marked as either a bracket or a caret. Brackets mean that they were masked. Carets are just regular bone conduction scores without masking. We won't get into that now. Depending on how popular this video is and how much you guys really want to learn, I will do more videos and more detailed instructions and descriptions of everything. But for right now, we're just going to do a very, very basic programming session so you don't get overwhelmed. And then I assure you, in later videos, we will get into the nitty gritty as far as the advanced features go, setting your MPOs, setting up your compression, all that stuff. But for now, I'm going to keep it very basic because the software will hold your hand through a lot. All right. But for the audiogram, we want to put exactly what is shown on your audiogram that you got from your licensed professional or audiologist. Okay. So bone scores, we're just going to pop these in. We do 5, 1, 2, and 4. So we're just going to put one there, put one there, put one there. Okay, you're going to put yours wherever it shows they are on your audiogram, okay? And then we're going to impose that to the left side. And then for the UCLs, those are your uncomfortable levels. So every hearing test that you get should have UCLs. If they don't do UCLs, they don't do real ear measurement, find another place that does. Find a place that does best practices just like Costco does, all right? So uncomfortable loudness levels, they're all over the place, but we're just going to pop some over here. 5, 1. At Costco, we do 5, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And we're going to pop that over to the other side. And that's it. Now we're going to go ahead and save it. And you now have an audiogram to program your hearing aids. All right, guys, so we got our audiogram set up. Now what we're going to do is we're going to connect the hearing aids to the computer. All right, so you're going to do that by selecting New Fitting. You're going to want to shut the hearing aids off and then turn them back on. If they're already in the charger and they've been charging, that means they're off, okay? To get these connected, the hearing aids have to be just freshly turned on. When the hearing aids are shut off and then turn on, for the first couple of minutes that they're powered on, they're going to be in pairing mode. And they have to be in pairing mode for your NoahLink to pick them up. Just like when pairing them to your phone. They have to be shut off and then turned back on. So I'm going to go ahead and take them out of the charger, and that's going to turn them on. So I just took them out of the charger. I'm going to go ahead and click on the NoahLink, and it's going to start searching for the hearing aids. All right, here they are. Now, since these hearing aids have already been programmed, the computer already knows which one is right and which one is left. But if these are brand new hearing aids, or if these are hearing aids that have never been programmed before, all this will be gray, okay? So to find out which one is which, you can either look at the serial number. that shows up right here and match them with the serial number on the hearing aid. Or you can just pick up one of the hearing aids, click on play sound, and if you pick up the left hearing aid and you click play sound on this side, then you know that's the correct hearing aid. So just to give you guys an idea, I'm going to go ahead and put the right hearing aid in my ear, and I know which one's right because on the physical hearing aid, it's got a red receiver and a red indicator underneath. Red is always right, blue is always left. So I'm putting the red hearing aid in my right ear. And just for an example, I'm going to go ahead and hit play sound on this left hearing aid. And as expected, I don't hear anything because I have the right hearing aid in my ear. So now I'm going to, with the right hearing aid in my ear, I'm going to hit play sound on this one. And there's the sound. So I know this one is indeed my right hearing aid. So I'm going to indicate that by selecting the red, which means right. It's always backwards in the programming software because the patient is normally sitting across from us. I think you can actually change that, but we're not going to do that right now. So we know this one is the right, so this one must be the left. Now on this screen, it gives you the option to either load up the settings that have been previously programmed and start from there, or you can start a brand new fitting, and that's what we're going to do with these. So I'm going to go ahead and hit start new fitting. Okay, perfect. Now, before we get started, I'm going to give you guys a quick rundown of what all these different screens and sections are for, and then we will go through them one by one. Client data, that is where you can check the patient's audiogram or your audiogram. It also has some different tabs for different auxiliary functions, personalization options, real ear measurement options. But the main thing that we use on the client data tab is the audiogram. Under the instrument acoustics, this is where you're going to be selecting the different physical properties of your hearing aids, such as the receiver strength and the type of dome. And then you can also see the fitting range of said receivers and domes. If I change the receiver strength, you can see this is my new fitting range. And then again, you can change domes, you can select a mold. And that's pretty much it for this screen. The Fit Instrument tab, that's where you're going to be doing the bulk of your adjustments. The Adaptation section is where you can set the overall gain, a quick, easy way to set the gain, and you can also set up automatic gain increases so that you can set a length of time for the gain to steadily increase. Fine-tuning is where you're going to make all of your major gain adjustments. This is where you can change different settings that make your hearing aid sound more hollow, more tinny, or less hollow and less tinny. There's a lot of stuff that you can change, and this is where we adjust the hearing aids when running real ear measurements. The Fitting Assistant is a great section to learn how to set up your hearing aids. We're going to touch on that later. Manage Programs is where you can set your different programs up. The Feedback Manager is your calibration settings and how you will reduce feedback if necessary. REM, you're not going to be using. This is for real ear measurement. Frequency lowering is another tab where you can set the frequency lowering settings. You can turn it on or off. And we're not going to be really talking about that much in this video. This will be for a separate video because it is pretty in depth. But the idea is you can set up the high frequencies that you can no longer really hear. And instead of the hearing aids trying to amplify said high frequencies, you can actually lower those into an octave or a lower frequency that you do still have audibility in. And then tinnitus sound support for all you folks that are wanting to try this out or set this up, but Costco doesn't do it. You can actually set that up yourself, and there will be a whole section on this as well. But in a nutshell, you can set up your hearing aids so that you can have them play this noise that will mask your tinnitus. We're going to go ahead and shut that off. And then the feature selection screen is where you're going to set up your advanced features. You could also set up your accessories and change different settings for those. And then you can also see data logging, which will show you how much time you have, using the hearing aids per day and all kinds of different things, when you make volume adjustments, etc. And then the finish session, that's where you're going to change what the buttons do for the hearing aids. You can change which sounds you hear for different situations, such as the battery level indicator and stuff like that. So when your battery gets low, you can set how loud that indicator is. You can set what it sounds like, all kinds of different stuff. And then you could change what the lights do. You can check your batteries. You can check the battery health and the battery history, set up your tinnitus controls if that's turned on. And then this is where you save and quit. So those are all the different sections of the fitting software. Now, I do want to go over one quick setting that I change, and I always make sure that this is the setting that I use. Normally, you don't see this diagram here. Normally, you see something like this. So I'm going to go to Tools, Preferences, and I'm going to change under Display and Graph View in Acoustics. Normally, by default, it is set to Insertion Gain, okay, which looks like this. I don't like this view. I like to see the other view because that kind of shows me what fitting range each one of these options can be used for. Okay, and I know that sounds kind of confusing, but let me just show you really quick. So we're going to go back down here and we're going to change the graph view and acoustics to fitting range with HTL audiogram. So what this does is this will show you in the instrument acoustics what fitting range these settings right here, the receiver and earpiece, can handle. Okay, so for example, with other brands of hearing aids, your receiver options are laid out as follows: either a LP or low power, a medium power, a high power, and an ultra power. But with Philips, they do it with the decibel level. So 60 dB receiver is considered your low power. 85 dB would be considered your medium power. 100 would be your high power, and 105 would be your ultra power. Okay. Now, the receiver strength has to reflect what is actually being used on the hearing aid. So to check that, take off the dome on the end of the receiver, and on your receiver, there will be some writing. It will either show 60, 85, 100, or 105. So whatever you are using on your hearing aid has to be selected here. Now, if I change, and then this red line shows my audiogram for the right ear and the blue line for the left ear. And this shaded area shows me the fitting range that this receiver and this dome can handle. For example, if I change the dome from a base dome double vent, which is what it's suggesting based on my hearing loss, that's what this indicator means. This is the suggested dome that you should use. If I change it to an open base dome, you can see that it just falls outside of what I need. And then if I change the receiver to a 105 or ultra power receiver, look at that. I'm well outside the fitting range. So that's why I really like this view. Okay, so if I change it to a 85 decibel receiver or a medium power, I can see that my hearing loss fits within this fitting range. Now, I'm using open domes. I'm going against the suggested dome. Okay, I'm going to go with an open base dome because that's what I'm using, and that's what I want to use for this demonstration. So whatever dome you use, make sure you have the appropriate one selected here in this menu. It's going to change a couple of things. Okay, it's going to change your feedback margin, etc., etc. Now, I promise, guys, for each one of these things we quickly go over, I'm going to cover in more detail in future videos. This is just enough to get you started. So once you select the correct receiver and dome that you're using, go ahead and just click on this little arrow, and it's going to put all this stuff away. Okay. Right ear, left ear. And then we're going to go ahead and hit set to target. This is going to program the hearing aids based off of our audiogram and based off of the fitting algorithm that we're using. Now, before we do that, I'm going to actually go ahead and hit cancel. Before we do that, all right, I want to talk about a couple things. This is just for your DIY self-programming people. This is no substitute for a real hearing aid programming session with a licensed professional. A good licensed professional will be using real ear measurement, which we do not have access to as a DIY self-programmer. REM is part of the best practices, and there is no substitution for that. That is the best way to go. In fact, I would suggest for all of you to not go anywhere to get your hearing aids program that do not use real ear measurement verification. It is a long process, but a very important one, and it is how you can ensure and verify that the hearing aids are programmed correctly. It is a machine that measures how much amplification at what frequencies is actually entering your ear canal given your unique ear canal acoustics. All right. We're not able to do that here. So we are not following best practices here. And I am in no way, shape, or form saying that you should be doing this instead of getting them programmed by a professional. I am making this video for Sam. Sam is the one that provided me with the 9040 hearing aids that he got. He sent me an email and he said, Brian, I am so sick of the repeated visits to the audiologist or the hearing aid practitioner. They just cannot get them set so that I like them. And I explained to him, I said, look, what they're programming your hearing aids with using real ear measurement is not what is comfortable for you. It is what you need. It is what's going to get you the most audibility. It's going to be what gets you to hear the best. But if you don't want that and you would like to be more comfortable and have more control over your hearing aids, this video is for those folks, okay? But this is not what you should be doing. This is just what you can be doing. Now, back to what I was saying. We're going to program the hearing aids, and we're going to program them using the NAL-NL2 fitting algorithm. These other fitting algorithms are Philips proprietary algorithms. And what these are for is these are going to set your hearing aids in a way that's going to be more comfortable and easier for you to adapt to. Okay, and I'm just going to show you guys a quick demonstration, and I promise we'll get into more detail in future videos. So let's take a look at the fit for speech fitting rationale or fitting algorithm. This is all the mathematics and programming stuff and all the data that's behind how these hearing aids are programmed based on your audiogram. Each one of these is a different method for taking your audiogram and translating that into amplification and gain settings. All right, so the fit for speech, look at what this looks like. We're going to click on fit instrument, and this is your fit for speech algorithm. Okay, these are your gain settings. And we're going to get into this a little bit later. But basically, it's like a reverse audiogram. The higher you go, the louder the hearing aids are. Okay, so what you're seeing here is no amplification at 125 hertz. The amplification just starts around 300, and you can see the numbers there changing. And then it kind of straightens out and plateaus for a bit. And then at 2000 hertz, you get a spike of gain. And when I say gain, I mean amplification. And then it goes back down at 3000 hertz and then kind of tapers off, you know, from 4,000 to 8,000. These are your gain settings. This is your amplification settings. Now, watch what happens when I change this from the proprietary fit for speech algorithm, and I'm going to go to the NAL-NL2 algorithm. So I'm going to click on client data. I'm going to click on NAL-NL2, which is your best practices fitting algorithm. This is the one that we use when we're testing and measuring real ear measurements. And I'm going to hit set to target. That's going to set the hearing aid amplification based off of your audiogram. So we're going to hit set to target and look at the difference. Way different. You're getting a steady increase all the way to the high frequencies instead of up and down and minimal amplification. Remember, the higher they are, the higher these lines are, the more amplification you're getting. Okay, so I just wanted to show you guys that really quick. And just a quick recap. These are your proprietary fitting algorithms. Basically, you know, they don't want you to return the hearing aids. If you're brand new with hearing aids and somebody sets them up like this, full amplification, it's going to be a lot to handle. And it's probably not going to be very comfortable. It's what you need, but it's not going to be very comfortable. So that's why those more mild fitting algorithms were created, okay? But we're going to stick with best practices in this video, and we're going to go with the NAL-NL2. And anytime you make any changes to the hearing aids, you can always go back to normal. Okay, I'm just going to do something really quick. I'm going to change all these gain settings, and it's just going to be wild and all over the place. Okay, I'm going to turn the mid frequencies down. I'm going to crank up the low frequencies and just crank them up. And now everything's all messed up. Okay, anytime you want to go back to normal, oh boy. There we go. You just click on this button right here. This is going to be your best friend. This is going to reset them and set them back to target. So I'm going to click on that based on target for programs 1. And we're going to just make it go back to normal. Much better. All right, so that's just a quick rundown, and we'll talk about this more in other videos. All right. So instrument acoustics, we got everything set up. Everything's matching what we're using. Actually, it's not. I'm going to click on open bass. Remember, this means that's what the computer recommends, and open bass. And now we're going to put this away. It's going to ask us if we want to set to target or keep settings. We're going to set to target. We're going to set the hearing aid programming based off of the receiver that we have and the dome choice. So here we go. All right. Whew, are you guys still with me? So it's a lot. We're going to go through this stuff quickly. This shaded area is frequency lowering. We'll talk about that in another video. We're not going to use it for right now. Basically what it does is the computer knows that we have a very severe high frequency loss. Okay, we can see that here on client data and by looking at our audiogram. Our high frequencies are bad in the severe area, almost in the profound area. Instead of the hearing aids trying with all their might to increase the gain or volume of those high pitch frequencies, there's a different approach you can take, and that's called frequency lowering. Basically what it does, and I'm going to go back to fit instrument, is it's going to take these high frequencies that we can barely hear, and instead of amplifying them to a crazy amount, they're going to move them over. They're going to move these sounds down an octave. Imagine a bird sounding like this, tweet, tweet, but you can't hear it because your high frequencies are so bad. Instead, the hearing aids can take that tweeting sound, tweet, tweet, and lower it to a lower octave that you do have audibility in, and it would sound like tweet, tweet. So instead of tweet, tweet, you've got tweet, tweet. I know that sounds really silly, but that's the premise. And each manufacturer has something like this. They all work in different ways, but they are accomplishing the same thing. Taking those really high-pitched sounds that you can barely hear and shifting them down to a lower octave that you can still hear. So that's what that's for, and we're going to turn that off for now. So I'm going to go to frequency lowering. I'm going to turn it off, and we will revisit that in a later video. So, here's another crash course. This target gain lets you quickly turn the volume of the hearing aids up. If you're brand new to hearing aids, you might want to start off a little bit lower just to help get used to the hearing aids. And then as time goes by and you get more comfortable and you are adjusting to the hearing aids, you can turn it back up. This is just a quick way to increase or decrease the overall amplification. All right, 100% is your full target gain. 80% is 80% of your target. What I mean by target is these dotted lines. That is what the computer thinks you should be at for your amplification settings or your gain settings. These solid red lines and blue lines are where we're actually at with the hearing aids. So the hearing aids are providing you this gain, but our target or our goal is the dotted lines. Okay, so now we are basically at our full prescription strength. We're at 100% of our target. Now our target's up here, but this is what we're actually getting. So that's just a quick rundown. You can also accomplish this by going to fine tuning, where a bulk of your adjustments are going to be made, and we could just grab all frequencies and we could just turn it down. Okay, so that's another way you can change the volume of your hearing aids. I'm grabbing all frequencies here and I'm turning them up or down. That's a quick way to turn up the volume or turn down the volume. All right, so number of fitting bands. This is basically like, you can look at this like the Jabra hearing aids. Jabra hearing aids have 17 fitting bands. That's in their premium hearing aid. Well, Philips gives you 24, which is the most I've seen in a hearing aid. We can really simplify this by changing it to 3 fitting bands. And this is kind of like what you would get in the equalizer in the Philips hearing aids. You know how in the equalizer, you can change your highs, your mids, and your lows? Well, that's kind of what this is. When you change it to 3 band, you can adjust your lows, your mids, and your highs. High frequency, mid frequency, low frequency. Low frequencies, apparently, according to Philips, is everything from 125 to about 750. Mids are everything from 750 to about 2500, and highs are everything after 2500. Okay. The more bands you have, the more you're able to individually adjust your hearing aids. Okay. So if I wanted to adjust one exact frequency, 2.3 kilohertz, then I can just grab it and I can turn them down. Okay. You're going to see this icon in all of the screens. This is your coupled or uncoupled, linked or unlinked. If you have them linked, every change you make to the right will apply to the left as well, and vice versa. If you want to make individual adjustments, just unclick it. And I suggest doing that most of the time. The reason you have 3 different lines here are for your soft sound inputs, which is the top line, your medium sound or average sounds, and then your loud sounds. For example, if a loud coal truck drives by and it's just way too loud, that would be considered a loud sound. That is denoted by your 80 dB input line. Okay, so if you want to reduce the volume of really loud sounds, you want to use this row. Okay, if you want to reduce or increase the volume of your average sounds, like people speaking, etc., then you want to change the volume settings in the middle row. And then if you want to increase or decrease the volume of like whispers and really soft sounds, maybe an air conditioner that's far away or somebody whispering, this is the row that you want to be using. And we'll get into more of that later. This is also how you change your compression ratio. A good rule of thumb is you want to have at least a 2 to 3 dB gap in between all of these. So here we have 14 decibels, then we have 20, and then we have 23. If I were to change this 23 and reduce it, watch what happens. The lines will collapse onto themselves, and that is going to sound kind of weird. It's just a good rule of thumb is at least 2 to 3 decibels of separation between these 3 lines. And again, we'll get into that more into that later. So this is where you're going to be making your main adjustments. If your hearing aids sound really tinny, and again, guys, I'm just quickly going over this, you want to adjust the high frequencies. So you can do that by just grabbing all 3 and turning them down. And that's going to get rid of some of that high-pitched noise. And now, if you want to reduce or increase your middle frequencies, you can take these ones. And if you want to reduce or increase your lows, you can do these ones, okay? For example, well, you know what? Let me just show you this. You can, if you want to learn how to make adjustments to your hearing aids and get the hang of things, spend some time in the fitting assistant, okay? The fitting assistant will give you recommended changes for different scenarios, for different problems you might be experiencing, different issues you might be experiencing. And this will, like when I first started fitting hearing aids, I spent a lot of time in the Jabra fitting assistant. Okay, so let me just give you guys a couple of examples. So let's say our own voice. We're having trouble with our own voice. Okay, what's our trouble? Well, let's click on own voice. Our own voice sounds hollow. Okay, if you click on that, the computer is going to tell you this is what you want to change. And it couldn't get any easier. If you spend enough time in here changing things, you're not going to need the fitting assistant. You're going to be able to go into the fine tuning and just start changing things according to what you're experiencing. Okay, but to get used to everything and get some help, this is a very, very good tool. And this is going to get you started on your road to programming your own hearing aids, DIY self-programming. So own voice sounds hollow. We're going to increase the gain for the 50, the 65, and 80 dB input. So all 3. And we're going to increase the gain for the mid frequency. So everything from 750 to about 2500. And all you do is you just click the button. If you want to do it in both hearing aids, you click on both and watch what happens. It applies it for you. Okay. Or you can undo it. Back to normal. Let's see what it says for background noise. Okay, if you want to, actually, we'll save that. Sound quality. Let's say general sounds are tinny, sharp, or metallic. Okay, just general sounds. Or yeah, tinny, sharp, or metallic. It's going to tell you to adjust the high frequencies, and it's going to tell you to reduce the gain for the high frequencies. So it already highlights everything from 2500 to 8000. And if it's just the right ear you're experiencing that in, just hit right. And it's going to reduce the high frequencies. I'm going to go ahead and undo that. And this is, again, going to give you an idea of how to fix all these different issues. So great tool if you're just starting out and want to learn how to adjust your hearing aids. Okay. Now back to the fine tuning. You can also do it manually by just selecting these different options and changing them. Now, one thing that I was taught in when I first started fitting hearing aids is if you're when a patient comes in and they're complaining about something, don't make big sweeping changes. Make small changes. Don't go over 3 to 4 decibels for a specific change. So if somebody says my hearing aids sound really tinny, I'm going to take some of these high frequencies and I'm just going to go down 2, 3, maybe 4 decibels, but no more than that. I'll have them spend time with the hearing aids for a couple of weeks. If they still don't like it or it wasn't enough, then we can make another change. But don't do really big drastic changes. And whatever changes you make, give it some time before you change it again. Okay. So that is the fitting assistant. Now, another thing the fitting assistant is going to do is not just fine tuning stuff, but it's also going to direct you to the advanced features. There's a lot of stuff you can change in there as well, like the impulse noise reduction, etc. Now, really quick, just another couple things. This top line here is your MPO. MPO stands for maximum power output. So if you have hearing aids and you've experienced, certain sounds cutting out, or, somebody dropping something and it just completely cuts out the sound, your MPO might be too low. And you can increase the MPO, but a rule of thumb is you don't want to increase it more than about 130 decibels because you can severely, you can hurt your hearing even more. 130 decibels is really loud. These should really be set based off of your UCLs or uncomfortable levels, but we'll get into that later. But this is where you set your MPO. So be really careful about this. Make sure you don't set them too high. This is your maximum power output, basically is going to limit the hearing aids volume or gain based on these numbers. So it will not get any louder than 110 at 2.3 kilohertz. All right. And just one more time, low frequencies, mid frequencies, high frequencies. One more quick note, high frequencies are where most of your important consonants are. And this is where most people struggle, is the high frequencies. So S's, T's, F's as in Frank, S's and Sam, like these, that's where these consonants live. So if you're still having trouble with consonants, you don't want to turn these too down. But again, we'll get into more of that later. All right, so we've gone over some basic adjustments that you can make using the fitting assistant to get a handle on how to adjust your hearing aids and what to adjust for certain things. And the more you use it, the more you will get accustomed to making your adjustments, and you could really have a lot of fun with this and test different changes out. Now we're going to talk about programs really quick. Programs is very, very easy. This is the next tab on the programming software. We're just going to get rid of program number 2 by hitting the delete button. Your hearing aids can have three additional programs. Everybody's going to have this general program. That's your default. You can't remove it. You can't get rid of it. That's just what it is. You may want to have a second program if you want a setting for noise. So let's say you're in a restaurant, really noisy. The automatic settings aren't doing it for you. Well, you can actually create a second program just for that. Speech and noise is probably going to be your most used additional program. So we're going to go ahead and select that. And for program 3, we'll set up a music program. We'll go ahead and select that. When using these different programs, it's changing a couple things. It's turning on and off certain advanced features, and it's also going to change some of the gain settings. Okay. So if we go back to our fine tuning, now you will see at the bottom the 3 different programs that we have set up, and watch these gain settings. Let's change everything back to normal. So we're just going to hit set to target, and we're going to change our program 1 back to target. There we go. And watch what happens when I switch to speech and noise. So it turned on the frequency lowering, and it also reduced those highs a little bit. Now let's check out hi-fi music. Big changes, big changes. Less separation between the 50, 65, and 80 dB inputs. And it's also going to be changing some of the advanced features as well. So the programs do a couple of different things, and they will sound different. Another thing you can do with these programs is individual gain settings. Okay, so while you're in fine tuning, if you want to make gain settings to program 1, you can. You can increase those lows really, a lot, or you can do whatever. And it's not going to change what's in here. Same thing with hi-fi music. Hi-fi music is the way it is. If we want to make changes, we can make changes, and it's only going to apply to your hi-fi music program. We'll get into more of this later, what kind of scenarios might need certain settings, and we'll play around with that. But I don't want this video to be an hour long. This is just a very basic programming session. So that's how you do the programs, and I'm going to show you guys how to activate those programs. You can either use the buttons on the hearing aids, or you can use your phone in the app. So if we were to use our app, you would then see two other programs available: speech and noise and hi-fi music. So that is the programs. There's several programs to choose from. They even have telecoil programs down here. We're not going to get into that right now, but oh, and Classroom might be another program you might want to use. You might want to use that for church, where you have somebody up front speaking. So just try these different programs out. And I always tell people, you know, just because it says Classroom on it doesn't mean you can only use it if you're in a classroom. My opinion is to load up as many programs as you can get. And whenever you're having difficulty, try cycling through those different programs and see if one of them is better than others. I've had several people come in and tell me, you know what, I don't really use my general program. I use the speech and noise. I just understand people better, and that's perfectly fine. The more tools, the better, in my opinion. But if you want to keep things simple, you don't even have to have any programs. You can reorder them. So I can make music number 2. And again, you could just delete them. Okay, so we're going to go back to here. I'm going to get rid of the music program and just keep the speech and noise. Okay, so now we're going to talk about Feedback Manager. Again, we're going to get into more, we'll get into more detail, like a dedicated, you know, are you having feedback issues? And I'm going to show you guys all the tips, all the secrets, all the tricks to help reduce feedback. Now, when you're dealing with feedback, what's happening is sound is leaking out of your ear canal, and it's touching and it's getting to the microphone. If you've ever been to a concert or a meeting and somebody has a microphone too close to the speaker, it creates a whistling or high pitch, really annoying noise. Sometimes you can hear it, sometimes you can't if you have a high frequency loss, but your hearing aids could be getting feedback and you don't even know it because you can't hear it, but other people can hear it, and it's embarrassing. So we don't want feedback. Feedback sounds bad. It also distorts the sound, and it just does not sound good. So like I was saying, with feedback, it occurs when too much sound is leaking out of your hearing aid. So as you start turning up the volume, that excess volume can leak out if you don't have enough occlusion. If you don't have when I say occlusion, I mean sealing up of the ear canal. The more sealed up your ear canal is, like if you're using a big power dome that really seals it up good, you're going to be able to trap all that sound in there, and you won't have as much feedback. But if you have open domes like me and you start turning up the hearing aids, that sound is going to leak right out, and it's going to cause feedback. Now, this shaded area, this is our feedback manager screen. This is where we adjust the feedback settings. This is where we calibrate the hearing aids, if you will. Most other brands require you to run a calibration. The Philips actually do a really great job managing feedback without having to do much. But if you have a more severe hearing loss, you might have to go in here and change some things around. This blue shaded area is the feedback area. This line is our gain settings for the high frequencies. All right, so if we go to fine tuning, you can see it's this top line. We don't really care about these lines because these are nowhere near this feedback area. If this feedback area gets too close to our gain settings, or even intersects, so let's pretend the feedback goes way down here, you're going to have feedback. And if you have feedback, you're going to want to run this test by hitting measure. So I have open domes, okay? And I'm going to run a feedback test. We're going to pretend I'm getting feedback. And actually, you know what? Let me just show you guys really quick. I'm going to go to fine tuning, and I'm going to start increasing the volume of both hearing aids. And what's going to happen is these lines are going to start creeping up here. And once they hit here, I'm going to have feedback, and you'll be able to hear it as I put my hand up to my ear. You'll hear the feedback, hopefully through this microphone. So I'm going to start cranking up the volume. Whoa, that's getting loud. Okay. Now watch what happens when I put my hand up to my left ear. All right, hopefully you guys could hear that. Now, watch what happens when I run this feedback manager. I don't like the feedback. So what's going to happen is it's going to start playing a bunch of noise, and this feedback and the hearing aids are going to suppress a lot of this gain so that it doesn't run into the blue area. It's going to basically shut down some of this amplification. So you have to make sure it's very quiet and hit measure. All right, look what happened. It limited the gain so that it's right under the blue area. Now I'm still getting some feedback, which means I shouldn't be using these domes. If I want this much gain and I need this much volume, which I do not, I'm going to have to get a more occluded dome. Okay? So I'm going to keep the gain settings right here, nice and loud. And I'm going to switch the domes to a power dome to really seal up my ear and watch what happens. So I'm going to take the hearing aids out. I'm putting the power domes on as we speak. I'm going to pop them in my ears. There's the right. Oh boy, I can really hear my own voice now because I'm getting the occlusion effect, which I don't like. And I don't need, because I don't need this much volume. I'm just showing you guys how this works and what to do if you're getting feedback and how this whole process works, the principles behind it. So now, normally what you're going to want to do is go to the acoustics and change the dome type to a power dome. But I just want to show you guys really quick what happens by swapping out the open domes and remeasuring this with the power domes. Watch this. Wow. So these power domes are blocking and trapping the sound in so well. Listen what happens when I put my hand up to my ear. Nothing. Zero. No feedback at all. And I can just keep cranking up this volume as loud as I want. And it's getting really loud now, but I can still put my hands up there. Nothing. Because none of the sound is leaking out because I have completely occluded my ear canals. All the sound is trapped in there and nothing is leaking out and hitting the microphones. So that is how you fix feedback. You can try using the domes of your choice. Open domes are going to sound a lot more comfortable. You're not going to have the occlusion effect. Your voice won't sound boomy. That's why I always talk about how nice it is when over-the-counter hearing aids come with open domes, because it just sounds so much better and so much more natural. But as you start going with more occlusion, like a double vent dome, a closed dome, power domes, it starts adding that occlusion effect. So you want to find a good balance between, no feedback, but no occlusion either. It's a dance, guys. It's a dance. Now I'm going to go here and change it to power domes. Whoops. No, come back. All right, so we're going to change it to power dome because that's what I'm using now, and that's what you need to do when you change your domes. And I'm going to hit keep settings. I don't want to change any of my gain settings. And you can see right there, without even running the feedback manager, I don't even need it because I'm using power domes and there's no feedback. But just for, learning and science, we're going to go ahead and run the feedback test. This is just the generic feedback margin it gives you just by using power domes. But if we run it, Beautiful. All right, and just hit accept. But we're going to go back to the open domes. So I'm going to hit instrument acoustics, and we're going to change it back to open bass dome. It's going to tell us it wants to recalculate. And you know what, we can go ahead. We'll go back to normal. So we're going to set to target. Again, it's using the NAL, NL2. And now everything's back to normal. And I'm going to put back on the open domes. All right. And remember, this is just the predicted feedback margin. This is as if we never ran the feedback test. If the predicted one or the default one doesn't work, then go to Feedback Manager and run the test. And we're okay. This is a nice margin to have, a nice pillow, if you will, or cushion. Pillow, what am I talking about? And okay, everything's good. And then, you know, you also have this setting down here. You can, if you don't need the feedback manager, you can just turn it off. But you're definitely going to want, I always keep it on maximum. That just works best for most of my patients. So that is feedback. If you guys, on any of these subjects, if you guys want a dedicated video on just this subject, feedback, or adjusting the hearing aids, or using the fitting assistant, or a deeper dive into the programs, a deeper dive into the fitting algorithms, let me know. I'm going to do most of those anyway, but let me know what you guys want to see, you know, most, and I'll get it for you. All right. Now, REM, you're not going to be using. Frequency lowering, we'll save that for another video. Tinnitus sound support. The nice thing about using this software is you can use the tinnitus sound support. Basically, what's going to happen is you can make adjustments. I'm going to, oh, that's so loud. It's playing a white noise right now. Oh, I'm just going to shut it off, but all the settings are going to go away. Basically, you can set a certain type of noise to cancel out your tinnitus, the ringing in your ears, the buzzing in your ears, the clicking, the crickets, whatever type of noise you're having. You can set up the hearing aids to play a sound that will kind of mask over the tinnitus so that you don't hear the tinnitus, but you will hear this other noise instead. There is a very fine line between where they both kind of cancel each other out and you don't hear it. That is your goal when playing with this. It's never worked for any of my patients, but you may be different. And there's some folks that would much rather have any sound than their tinnitus ringing in their ears. So you can play around with it if you want. And the idea is turn it up until you can start it at a very, very low volume. So for example, I'm going to go in here and I'm going to put these together. I'm going to link both of them up, and I'm going to take all these and I'm going to turn it all the way down. All right, my tinnitus is not flaring up right now, so I can't even hear my tinnitus. Could be because I'm hearing this instead. But the idea is turn it way down and then start creeping up slowly until your tinnitus starts going away. There's different types of sound you can use: pink noise, red noise, ocean waves, and you just find something that works for you, okay? Something that gets rid of that tinnitus sound. And we'll do a deeper dive into this if you guys want, but that's how that works. I'm going to shut it off. I myself don't want to hear any noises at all because I don't want it to interfere with my understanding of speech. And that's it, guys. Now we're going to take a look at some of the advanced features. Again, we'll get into more detail in a future video. These features in here, these are your advanced features, and these can be program specific. Okay, so if you want noise reduction at the maximum, then for the speech and noise program, then click on speech and noise. And as you can see, the noise reduction is already on high. And that's an example of what I was talking about. When you have different programs, they turn on and off and change the settings for whatever program you're in. Okay, so the general program, it's going to have the directionality mode in dynamic directionality, which means it's going to be changing the directionality based on, what's going on. But when you go to the speech and noise mode, okay, let's say you're at a restaurant and it's very noisy and you don't want to hear everything in the restaurant in a 360 around you. Well, go to speech and noise, and you'll see it is changing it to adaptive directionality. So you can really play around with these different modes, and I will do a video and really do a deep dive into these different options, okay? That will be for another video. That's way too much to fit and cram in this basic programming guide, if you will. But just to give you an example of what some of these things do, you can just highlight each one and it will tell you what it's going to do. So noise reduction mode, very, very simple. It's going to reduce the noise, okay? It's going to reduce the background noise, and you can have different settings. All right, in the general program, the default program, you can see where these settings start out at, and that'll give you kind of a baseline, but these can all be adjusted. And just try these different settings out, see how they go. One suggestion that I would have for you is, if you really want to test out what these do, then what you can do is you can get rid of all your programs, take your general program, okay, make sure it is set to the very basic settings. So set to target, based on target. Now we know that the hearing aids are programmed the way the computer thinks. This is your very baseline setting. Go to your programs and copy your normal program into these other empty slots. Okay, we're just going to copy and copy. And what you can do is you can go to the advanced feature selection. And let's say you want to try out the adaptive directionality mode. You can go to program 2 and change it to adaptive directionality, just to kind of see what these do. And then you can go to program 3 and do a fixed directional. And then you can go to program 4 and you can go to pinna mode. Okay, so now we have the same gain settings for each program. See, they're all the same, but the one difference is your advanced features. And for this scenario, we're just testing out the different directionality modes. All right, so program 2 is adaptive directionality. So we can go to our program management and we can change it to adaptive directionality or whatever. And then program 3, we're using fixed directional. Okay, and you can go to your program management and change the name for program 3 to fixed directional, and so on and so forth. And that way, to test out these different features, you don't have to hook up the hearing aids to the programming software and make all these changes. It takes forever. You can set them up so that you can just click it on the fly and you can test out these different programs. That's what I would suggest for you DIYers out there that want to test these different directionality modes, these different settings, or you can make more changes than that. It's all up to you. But I just wanted to show you guys a quick, effective way to test out the different directionality modes. But now I'm going to go ahead and get rid of them all. Come on now. Just wanted to show you guys how to do that. And we're going to go back to speech and noise. Okay. Now we're going to show you, now I just want to talk quickly about some of these things. Soft noise management, that's going to adjust the level of soft noise like air conditioners and stuff like that. Speech clarifiers, supposed to help, speech stand out more when there's noise, so you can change that to high if you want, see how that goes. Sound protect wind noise management, that was introduced, or that was changed from the 9030s to the 9040s, and this will reduce the noise you get when you rub your hands on the microphone. And when you get a big gust of wind, you probably want to have this on. And then sound protect transient noise reduction is like impulse noise reduction. Okay. Impulse noise reduction, transient noise reduction, it's the loud, sudden sound. So slamming of doors, people yelling or screaming, alarms going off, really, really fast, sudden sounds. The hearing aids will dampen those for you. Okay. And the higher you have this setting, the more dampening you're going to get. So that's what that is. Again, we'll go over this stuff in more detail, another video. The accessories, this is where you can kind of change different settings based on whether you're using a phone. So if a lot of people come in and they say, hey, whenever I'm on the phone, I have the volume turned all the way up, but they're just not loud enough. I can't really hear well on the phone. Well, increase it to 9 dB and the phone will be louder. Same thing for the microphones. If people are saying, whenever I call somebody and talk to them on the phone, they can barely hear me. You can change the mic, level. So these are some useful settings that you can play around with, like when you're streaming and stuff. But now let's go to the different options you have with the buttons, the different audio signals that you're going to get. So volume control. So first of all, I'm going to just shut everything off. Volume control. Okay. Volume control gives you the option to change the volume with the up and down buttons on each hearing aid. Each hearing aid has an up and a down. Up is for volume up, down's for volume down. And this option in the middle gives you the ability to change whether or not the volume is in sync with each other between the left and the right. So if we uncheck this and it's not highlighted, that means you're going to have individual volume control settings. So if you just want to change the volume of the left hearing aid, you can do that just by using the left hearing aid buttons, and the right will also be independent of each other. Okay, if you want them to change in sync with each other, click that on and make sure it's dark blue. And now if you change the volume on the left side, it's going to change it on the right side as well. And remember, these things are backwards. This is your left, this is your right. Now, changing programs, you can also use the buttons to change programs. If that's the case, what you're going to want to do is what I would do is you can either set it so that program changes are a medium press. So instead of just doing a click or a quick short press, you actually hold the button down for a couple of seconds. And then instead of changing the volume, it's going to change programs. What I like to do is I like to have one side do volume and one side do programs. Okay, so what we would do is we would turn off the volume control for the left hearing aid. So the right hearing aid will control the volume of both hearing aids. And we'll make it so that the left button changes the programs. Okay, so right changes volume of both hearing aids, left changes programs of both hearing aids. And that's how you would do that. Now I like to use my app for everything. So what I do is I turn those off. I turn on the volume control settings and I change it so that they are not in sync. That way I have individual left and right controls really quickly with the buttons. And if I want to change programs, I'll use the app. And then the call controls, that's for your phone calls. So if you have an iPhone and you want to use hands-free, you can to answer the call, short press, decline call, long press, end call, long press, etc. And then this is your volume control range. This dictates how much you can go up and how much you can go down with your buttons. I like to have the maximum range for both sides, so a maximum range, you can go down 20 decibels with your volume control and you can go up 10 decibels. And you can also change the size. If you want really, really small adjustments, you can do 1 dB steps, but I just keep it on 2.5 dB steps. That works for most folks. And then turn on remember volume settings. What this does is it will actually remember what volume you left the hearing aids at. So volume settings will be kept for each program when changing programs and when the hearing instruments are turned on or off. So if you like your volume at the maximum, but you're sick of changing it every time you take your hearing aids out of the charger, you can turn this on. And when you put your hearing aids in the charger and turn them off, it will remember whatever volume you had set it. Audible indicators, that's going to show you the different sounds for different situations. So when your hearing aids first start up, you can click on this to see what it sounds like for the startup tone, and you can turn it on or off. If you don't like the startup tones, turn it off. You won't hear it anymore. Same thing with the shutdown tone, startup volume. Whenever you change the volume on your hearing aids, that's what volume change is for. So you can play it. and it's going to tell you what it sounds like when you hit the volume button. You could also change the different tones, and you can change the level or the volume of these indicators. Okay, so if when you turn your hearing aids on, or when you hit the change volume button and it's too loud, you can change the level to a soft level. Okay, when you get a low battery, you can either have it beep, or you can have it spoken, where it will actually say beep beep, battery is low. And then of course you can change the volume of all that stuff too. And then you can test out the different sounds of different things, like when your hearing aid battery starts getting worn down and starts losing capacity, it will actually let you know. And this is what it sounds like. You can't hear that. Only I can hear it because it's playing in the hearing aids, but you get the idea. And then you can change the visual indicators. This is just, auxiliary stuff, no big deal. And then a really nice thing is there's a battery section. This is the only hearing aid brand that I've seen that shows you all this, and this is amazing. So when you hook your hearing aids up to the software, it will tell you if your internal rechargeable battery needs to be replaced or not. It'll actually let you know. It'll tell you the current battery level. So mine are at 96%, and my batteries are in good condition. Just like an iPhone will tell you the battery health, same thing here. So really, really cool. And then save and quit. That is your final option. So we're going to go ahead and save all this. I normally just hit the X, and it's going to say, do you want to save everything? And we're going to go ahead and we're going to hit save. All right, guys. Well, that is it. Congratulations. Give yourself a round of applause. That is a lot of stuff to go through. Once you get the hang of it, it's really not that bad. And like I said before, if you can do that with the Philips software, you can program hearing aids with the PhoneX software or the Jabra software. All this stuff kind of carries over from product to product. It varies slightly. Like I said, some hearing aids have to be calibrated for feedback, but the Philips, a lot of times you can get away without calibrating them. But now at least you know when you need to calibrate them, what it does, and all the other stuff that I showed you. So I just hope you guys found it useful. If you did, please subscribe to the channel, share the Hearing Club with all your friends or anybody that you know has hearing aids. It would mean so much to me. The channel's growing. We've got over 10,000 subscribers. Yes. And I couldn't be happier. This has been so much fun, guys. So much fun being able to help you guys, talk to you guys. Just thank you. Thank you for being there. Thank you for watching. And thank you guys. You guys are great. I'll catch you guys in the next video, and you guys all have a great day. Let's get hearing.